it seems to be going around.
Look how wide this
Everyone can please rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the November 20th Town of Wakefield Planning Board meeting. So Steve, would you mind sitting in for Dick? And that will just get us a quorum for tonight. You haven't heard from Charlie at all, right? Okay. All right, so we do not have any public hearings on the agenda or conceptual reviews. We do have some board business. The first on the agenda for board business is short-term rentals. And, hi Josh. Good. And we have talked about that previously. Try to make this short. In our zoning currently, we do not call out short-term rentals as an allowed use. There are obviously short-term rentals that have been going on in Wakefield for a very long time. So at the bare minimum, our plan, I think as a board, we'll vote on it, but believe is going to suggest we put to the town ballot that we add in a line item for short-term rentals to make those an allowable use. Okay, so that's I'd say the bare minimum. There are a few other things though that I think before we do that, we may want to consider. There's been some discussion around whether short-term rentals are, whether there's maybe some abuse, whether they're allowed. Is there potentially too many people staying in certain dwellings and maybe over what would be recommended from the state as far as septic system usage. So I'm gonna stop there for a moment. Anyone on the board have any comments or thoughts. I have a couple of things I'd like to propose, but I want to check with you before I do
I'll
that.
listen.
I'm sorry?
I'm gonna listen to what you have.
Okay, all right. So, and this is, although this is not a public meeting, I think I'm getting that right, versus hearing. I know there's some people here that are here because of our discussion on short-term rentals, so I will open it up and let people speak if they want to. So before we get to any decision, I want to hear from folks that are here. So I have a couple of thoughts. One is to potentially add something to our zoning that would state that short-term rentals have adequate parking that the vehicles that are, that are there for the short-term rental park on site, and they're not parking on the street. So there's adequate parking on the property. That's one. The other is that the number of individuals that would be, advertised or that would be staying at a particular property would not exceed the state's recommendation for usage, which is basically 2 people per bedroom plus 2 additional. So if there was a 3-bedroom, that would be 6 plus an additional 2, so it would be 8. So in other words, you wouldn't see short-term rentals potentially advertising, sleeps 14 and has potentially a 2-bedroom septic. So I think that would help address some of the concerns around overloading septic systems, especially when a lot of these are on the lakes. So my thoughts.
Are these suggestions or they?
I kind of want to hear what the people have to say too.
Sure, that's
I
fine,
mean,
but before
are
we,
you putting it into the requirements or are they just
So-
suggestions
so-
for the?
so my opinion is we would put that in as part of the draft for the zoning, and that would go before the town vote.
I just think that's awful hard to enforce.
So there's a lot of things that are hard to enforce.
So that's why it becomes more of a recommendation.
Well,
I mean, that's what a lot of the zoning we have now is almost a recommendation, even though it's supposedly
so it is,
it's
but
so hard to enforce.
but it potentially gives an abutter or someone living in the neighborhood the ability to have a conversation with the code enforcement officer if they're seeing that a particular property is being, overused, I would say. And
Well, I
there would
think
be
it's when it
something
becomes commercialized that's the particular wording I used when we brought this up, because when it's commercialized, you no longer have your neighbors next door, you have everybody but your neighbor next door.
or in the neighborhood, right? But I guess so you're right, a code enforcement is not gonna be driving around every day of every week looking for these things. No, I mean, there's a lot of things in our zoning that they can't possibly do that, right? But it does give, someone that is a interested party, again, a direct abutter, someone in the neighborhood, something that would allow them to come to the town, have a conversation with the code enforcement to say, hey, look, I think this is being overused.
I think that it only works if there is a financial burden that is put on the landowner.
A permitting process.
So
well,
when a violation is had, you'll give a warning. The second one, it starts coming with fines. And that's the only way it'll work.
And the code enforcement officer has the ability to do that on.
No, he does, he has
On-
nothing that gives him the ability to fine people for parking 10 vehicles in the roadway or
If you're not following
overloading
zoning.
a septic system, that he does not. It will not be enforced.
So not being enforced and having the
It
ability
can't
to
be
do so
enforced.
is 2 different things.
Can't be enforced. If it was, we wouldn't be having this discussion. It's already not allowed.
So when you say not allowed,
It's
right
not in the
now,
definitions, it's not allowed and it's happening,
okay, so
right?
can't argue with that. If somebody came to the code enforcement today and said, I don't want my neighbor to have their short-term rental, they would have an argument that it is not allowed and they could shut it down.
The
I
short-term,
don't believe that,
you're getting that, when it becomes a business, then it's changed to a business use of a dwelling, of a
And that's what
home.
these are. Those are
So
the ones that
that's
have been
that
brought to
crosses
me,
a
to my
different
attention.
line.
They are not, the owner does not stay in these places whatsoever. They buy it, they put it up online, and all they do is rent it. The only time the
So-
landowner is there when
So-
they're doing maintenance.
We
So-
already have regulations on the home businesses and requirements for home businesses, and I mean, that's what it becomes.
right, but I think there's a fine line
Well, that's
between
not a home
whether,
business because they're not living there.
No, but it's using, yeah.
Yeah, running a business.
It's no longer a home business. If they are not occupied in the premises, it is not a home occupation.
so it's still a residential use. If you bought a house and rented it out long-term, you rented it for
Well,
a
it's a
year
recreational
lease.
use.
Yeah, right, but it's still, a short-term rental is still a residential use, just like a longer-term, like,
It's a
you know,
hotel.
month or year or 6-month lease.
If you don't do it
So
like a
it-
hotel, it's not gonna be any different.
Right, but as far as like the state of New Hampshire and how they define these, they are not saying that these are commercial operations that then wouldn't be allowed in a residential district. That's,
Well, many of
that's
them
not
aren't.
part, it's not part of this discussion. It's not something that we have control over, it's not something that,
So that's my point, is there's been a loophole that's been opened up, and somebody found a very good way to get into that loophole, and it's been working for, I don't know how long this stuff's been around, but probably 5, 6 years, 7 years now.
so I don't know
And-
if I'd agree with that.
And then you're starting to see all
People-
these cities and towns, like Conway, that are trying to do everything they can to fix it. And the problem is, until you put it into wording, that once you violate these, if we can put zoning ordinances in, but they need to have penalties associated with them that goes on the landowner. Because if you overload your septic, what's it gonna do? How are they gonna, why would they stop? What's the penalty for it? Unless it's leaking out, there's no penalty.
So, just because somebody puts 14 people in a house that has a 2-bedroom septic
Two-bedroom.
doesn't automatically mean that the septic has failed.
I'm not saying
Right.
it fails, it's
So-
just, it's a overloading of the septic,
Correct,
and if it's,
correct.
that's fine if it's like a one-time thing, but when it happens week after week after week through the whole
And so
summer.
that's why I'm suggesting that we add in some regulations that the town would decide whether they wanted to, they could vote yes or no. That we add in some regulations that say you would follow the state's guidelines for not allowing more than 2 people per bedroom plus a total of 2 more for the entire dwelling.
Right, their occupancy permit already states that, and they're already going well over those. So that's, they don't care about state guidelines, they don't care about this stuff.
When you
That's my
say
point.
they,
And the
when you say
people, the
they,
people that are abusing it, the people that are commercializing
Yeah.
their property, and then the ones that are coming in and doing it, don't give a crap about any of it, because
that's
it's
why-
not their neighbors.
and if we put some regulations in, like there is at
They need
least
to
an
have
avenue
structure that is not easily avoidable.
that is not easily avoidable.
Absolutely is. Somebody
It's
have,
not.
okay.
But I would argue that it's not. I would argue that when people advertise
So
on,
what happens when they violate it? What's the next step?
someone goes down and complains to the code enforcement officer and he addresses it.
How?
He goes and he talks to the property owner
Mm-hmm.
and he tells them that they can no longer advertise and hold that many people in that particular dwelling.
You can
And
tell them
if
that,
he-
you can't
if
stop
he-
them from advertising it.
And if he needs to, he can fine them if they're not complying.
On what grounds is he gonna find them? That's my question. There isn't any. I'm telling you, there isn't any.
Because they're not meeting zoning. They're not complying with zoning. That's the grounds. There are a lot of things that we have in zoning that if people don't comply, they can be fined for it. This is no different.
I just don't, I've never
If
seen
you're
it
running an
happen.
illegal business on your property, that can be stopped, and if you continue to do it, you can be fined for that. Now, might you have to take that to a judge and have the judge order that? Yes, but it's been done, like, it's no different than anything else. I don't know why we're stuck on this
I'm
piece.
just, because I feel like it's just gonna keep happening.
Well, it's certainly gonna keep happening if there's nothing that that the town can do to stop it.
Well, you just said there is.
You're going around in circles here.
But like you just said, if a neighbor complains, which they have been,
Yep. So hold on. If a neighbor complains today, right? Has anyone come in that you're aware of and talked to the code enforcement officer and said they need to stop this?
I mean, they've pulled me aside, so I'm assuming they've already gone that route, and I've asked, I tell them to.
Unless you know that they have, I don't know if that's
I don't
the
wanna,
case.
I don't wanna verify, I'd rather have Peter for that conversation, so.
Okay, I mean, that's fine. I am not aware that anyone has specifically said, this is not in your zoning at all. This needs to be stopped.
Well, that's the thing, it's,
So we're trying to correct that aspect of it.
Okay.
Because I don't think anyone can argue that this has been going on for over 100 years in town, if not more than that, right? People have been renting out their homes
sure,
on sometimes short term.
vacation time, yeah.
Right? Exactly. So I don't think anyone should argue that we wouldn't allow that to be happening, right? Everyone good with that aspect?
Don't you need a better definition or separation between what's basically been going on since the first cabin was built and rented out to
Yeah, so
more of a commercial?
So that is part of what we're suggesting that we add in.
But that's what would draw the line and need approval to move to that type of commercial rental.
So wait, state that again, Stephen.
So if you're going from basically someone renting out, a couple of weeks out of the summer to help pay their taxes to a commercial property that's renting out all summer.
So that is no different. That is how do you say, oh, we're gonna allow someone to rent it out for 2 weeks versus,
That's
oh,
totally
maybe
different.
3,
Well,
you're talking
or maybe.
short
You're
term
talking
versus
about a
commercial.
commercial versus short-term rental.
You're talking a
So
hotel versus a household, something that somebody lives in versus something somebody doesn't.
So I've talked to the town attorney about this, and the state does not define these type of, I guess, not arrangements, but I guess businesses or rentals as commercial. They don't. So we don't have the right to do that. These are residential uses of a residential property, regardless of whether
Well, they're
we
not
feel.
residential if they own one, doesn't live there.
Yeah, cool. So if you own a home, so you.
Well, I just kind of have a question, and
Yeah.
maybe it's not relevant to
Yeah.
any of it, but if somebody rents out their house,
Yep.
gives somebody a year lease.
Yes.
Do they pay a New Hampshire rooms and meals tax?
No. They don't.
Short-term rentals,
So-
you have to, so is
You
that the
have to.
difference, you know what I mean, is that
So,
making it
yes,
commercial?
There are court cases up and down all over New Hampshire. These, whether I agree or not, they are not considered commercial. They are allowed in residential areas, in residential
So
zones.
I'm not
that's
saying
not
it
like-
can't happen in residential areas, because that's where they're obviously gonna be almost all in the R2
Yeah.
district, but my point to it is you have taken, so what you're saying is that I should be able to go buy a place on the lake, and I should be able to run a marina out of it.
No,
Why not?
because that's different, because
I'm
that's.
still living there and I'm working there.
No, Dave. If you look at our zoning, it specifically calls
Do you
out
realize
some
how
of these things.
moronic this sounds? I'm sorry.
There's a lot of things
This
that
is so
aren't, that
stupid.
don't make common sense. I'm
So-
just telling you how the state defines these type of operations. And they do not define them as commercial. They are allowed in residential zones. I'm not saying that I agree or
I'm
disagree.
not disagreeing whether it's allowed or
Right.
not allowed in the zone. What I'm saying is when it becomes commercialized, okay, so when it
So-
goes from renting it 2 or 3 times a year, maybe even a month in the summer, okay, that's fine. Nobody ever complained about that. Maybe some, but at the same time, it
So-
was very small. Now that there are people coming in, they come up, they buy 5, 6, 7 camps. Every one of them is just an Airbnb rental or whatever online site rental. And that's all they do with it. It is no longer their residence. It's not a residence, it's a business.
It's
If I
still a
go
residence.
by and I wanna put a hotel on the same property and I don't change the structure of the house, what's the difference?
So I'm not gonna argue with you on that because I understand your point. I'm telling you that New Hampshire doesn't define it that way.
But
And
it
so-
has to
so-
be, because
so-
it is.
So,
Yeah, well,
let me
it's not
stop for a
defined, and there's
second.
nothing in the
So-
law that can back you up.
So, Jen, can you hear me okay?
Obviously not.
Yes.
So, help me out here or not. Am I off base here? I don't think that we can define this type of operation as a commercial operation and therefore say, oh, well, these are occurring in a residential district, so therefore they're not allowed.
I didn't say not allowed.
That's not what I said. What I said is they need to be regulated better than what they are.
Okay.
Because it is a commercial entity, it is a hotel.
Okay.
Whether it's a
So-
one-room hotel or not, it's a hotel.
So steps towards that, okay? You need to have adequate parking so you can park on site, right? Steps towards that, you need to be cognizant of your septic system.
I think
and
it
how
should
much-
have the same rules that apply to running a hotel.
I don't agree,
Why not?
because it's not
They have
not
to
multiple-
apply, they apply to the same state tax for food and like we just discussed. They are having to follow the same state regulations. Why are we letting them so relaxed on everything else?
Well, for one thing, there are, like I mentioned, there are all kinds of like examples of this in different towns in the state of New Hampshire. There are court cases, there are some towns that have gone way overreach. I wanna make sure we're not doing that.
I'm not looking to overreach at all, and you should know that I'm not trying to overreach. It's specifically for people that are going in and putting in a hotel that's on the waterfront, that they are not using as a residence.
Okay, so what else what else would you
I would do the
suggest?
same rules and regulations that we would do for a hotel.
And
They
what
need
is
to come in
that?
front of the board, it's a business. I guarantee you, every one of them's registered under an LLC. That is the problem.
I
The problematic ones are going to be showing up under LLCs.
I don't think that we have the right to determine, to say, oh, how the ownership of that property is established. I don't think we have the right to determine, to regulate based on that. So we can have it in a trust. It doesn't mean that if
A
the,
trust and a LLC is totally different.
I understand that, but I don't think that that is something that we as a town should be looking to do. So I'm gonna stop there for a second. Jen, is there anything that you can maybe help with to provide any insight as to how far we maybe could reach, not reach, what might be reasonable? Are you on mute? I don't know if you're talking. Oh, there you go. I can hear you.
I think the clear view mute you when I speak.
I'm sorry? What was she trying?
Clearview needs to mute you when I speak. Or are we okay now?
I can hear you now.
It was echoing before. So, admittedly, I'm not an expert on short-term rentals. From my research and what I understand is like at the state level, from DRA, Department of Revenue Administration, there is a definition of short-term rentals, and that's one or more rooms in a residential unit for occupancy for tourist or transient use for less than 185 consecutive days. So there is a separate and distinct definition from hotels or motels for short-term rentals when it comes to that application of meals and rooms tax. So that's one thing I can kind of mention there. Doug, you're right. I mean, there has been a lot of legal action relative to short-term rentals. There is some guidance out there for, some best practices based upon what's been through the courts thus far. Just some of the kind of key things that if you are going to do this, making sure that you're very clear in your definitions. So we'd probably want to look at your definition of dwelling unit and make sure that it is clear that it does not include transient occupancies. We need to separately define short-term rentals. And then from there, you could incorporate some of those provisions like you were talking about. Yeah.
Okay. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is how do we maybe help with some of the issues that some folks have been seeing or brought up around maybe some potential abuse versus how do we not penalize the folks that are running short-term rental operations in town and are doing a good job of it and are good neighbors and are not, basically abusing, or causing issues in their neighborhood. Like, how do we do that, right? Like, I think we need to be careful about that, right? So.
Absolutely, but that's why I said it's when it becomes a commercialized property. And from what she just said, absolutely, anything over 180 days of rental is become commercialized.
That's not what she said.
So what did you say? So can you say that again, Jim?
So the state defines that the difference between short-term and long-term is 180 days to be a short-term, correct, Jen?
Less than 185 days. Less than
Less than
185
Right.
consecutive days.
consecutive.
Which means nothing.
Yeah.
So all we need is a day in between.
Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose, right?
Basically.
That sounds like a clerical error.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually quite a lot, right?
That's not short-term
that's
at all.
like-
The whole summer.
It's a little bit less than 6 months, I think, right?
Yeah.
But it's,
It's 5
Yeah.
months. Yeah, no, that sounds like somebody made a clerical error in the writing of that.
all right, so I'm gonna ask this again. Does the board, not asking for a vote, but just like thoughts, does the board think that we should have short-term rental as a allowed use in town?
Short term, yes.
Yes,
Okay,
clear definition.
okay,
Yeah, you just have to be, it has to be clear and enforceable,
yeah.
you whatever it is.
Yeah, so like what is proposed, right, this is the bare minimum, is that we add in the permitted uses, and you all have copies of this, that we would add a line item for short-term rental, and it is allowed as a permitted use in essentially all of the residential zones, right? It would be conditional and business and commercial, and it's essentially following other residential activity, right? The definition, so we added the definition, short-term rental, a dwelling unit or portion thereof where transient accommodation is provided for any periods less than 30 days. Short-term rentals shall not include hotels, motels, bed and breakfasts, or inns. So I think that covers the definition aspect. Is there anything that anyone thinks that we should add in for any?
Some houses could be lumped into a definition of a hotel though, that did a year-round Airbnb in some state, and some towns in the state have done such, I believe so. In the zoning ordinances,
So a year-round Airbnb, so what do you mean by that?
that the reason for the house is it's year-round, rented out, short-term rentals.
Right,
Yeah.
but so what this means is that the accommodation for a particular person or group is any period less than 30 days. So when you say like year-round Airbnb, to me, that doesn't mean that one person is renting it for 365 days. That means that there would be different people likely for different periods of time over that year. So that fits this definition. Does that make sense? Jen, am I right on that?
Yes.
All right,
I'd like-
would it help to?
Yes.
So, would anyone care to speak? And if you would, please, raise your hand, your name and where you live.
Actually, if you come up so you
Priscilla
can hear the
asked
mic.
because she's not
Oh,
here and she can
okay.
only hear if they're
So,
out to the
if
mic.
you wouldn't mind, if you want to speak, please come up and sit down and then speak into the microphone. Thank you. I'd get in trouble.
You're already in trouble.
I
So I'm Carol Provenchal, with Bellow Lake Property Owners Association.
know. Okay,
And when you say that nobody's come down or you've not heard about
I
anybody,
have
we've been
not.
down several times.
Okay.
About this.
Yep.
And I think we're all going on the same page here. We kind of went through too and looked at the issues that we have.
Yep.
And you've covered some of them,
okay,
parking.
yep,
Septic systems is one of our biggest problem.
yep,
We have people that are advertising, 6 bedrooms and they're advertising for 28 people. Yeah, I mean, I can show it to you.
okay, that's okay. I believe you.
We have quite a few of them doing this.
Okay,
So and I've listened to what you're saying. But I did also call the state and same thing as what Jen came up with. But
Okay.
what they did tell me is that anybody who is not actually living in the residence, but is actually renting it as a profit, they should be paying a room and meals tax.
Yep.
And what I'm thinking, why do we not have a permitting process? Why do the short-term rentals not have to get a permit to rent? And then that way we would know if in fact there's an issue, who we're going to. Because right now we have nothing. We can come down here and we can complain. We can tell you that the septic systems, they've got 100 people in this house, but there's nothing the state's going to do, there's nothing you can do until it fails. By that time, it's too late for us. We've got enough
Yep.
problems with taking care of the lake
yep,
with different algae and bacteria that we need something in place. Something that if we have a problem or somebody else has a problem, we can come to the town and they say, yes, they're registered. They're registered as and I can tell you, a lot of towns are doing that now just because of this. So that they have somewhere to go, if they have a complaint, they can see if they're registered, and then the town we have some type of help, but you also have some type of help. Because as you know, with associations, we kind of have our own rules,
Sure,
regulations.
right,
But something like this
Yep.
is something that we went from a few rentals to now it's quite a few rentals. Where people are coming in and buying up the properties, they're not living there. They're renting them out and you've got people, 20, 30 cars in a parking space that should only be for 2. So if there was an emergency, you gotta get somebody to move all these.
sure, sure.
So,
Yep.
so we kind of went through and looked at all of these things, just see if there's something that we can help with,
Right, Right.
Because, again, we need to be able to go somewhere or talk to somebody when there's a problem.
okay, all right. I'm gonna ask Jen, from a permitting process standpoint, would the town be stepping out of bounds if it required each short-term rental owner to, sorry, go ahead.
Well, could you, through a permit, they'd have to come with a site plan as well, That would adequately.
Well, what they.
And that's what some
if you
towns have
look
done.
at- Yeah, if you look at Hampton
I'm
right now,
correct.
they just put
Yeah.
in for short-term rentals. And what they did, and they did this for that reason, is to be able to control the parking, control, if there was emergency or issues. They put in a permitting process. If they're going to rent short-term, they would go down, they would get a permit, it would look at what their septic is, what all of this is. They would be registered as a business.
Sure. Yeah.
And that there gives you some leeway to be able to help us if we're running into a problem with these issues.
Sure, because
Because right now, I've looked at all your zoning, I've looked at all your requirements, and right now, it's so vague that there's nothing that we can come to you about and you actually be able to help us.
So it's also, there's absolutely nothing on the safety aspect of these.
Nope.
There's no chance for the fire department to go in and say, yeah, this isn't a safe place. There's no handicap access in most of these places.
No.
There's
also building code.
there's building codes that are not met. These places are not, most of them, I know for a fact, I've been at two of them. They didn't even have a fire detector, a smoke detector. They're supposed to, according to the agreement.
Some of
There
these are
wasn't
very
even
old.
a smoke detector in the building.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna bring up particular ones. I'm just telling you, we have violation after violation and issues that are just going under the carpet. They are not being seen, they are not being enforced, and they can't be unless we put something in that actually can do it. Now, town ordinance that says, yep, if you're doing this, then it needs to have an inspection, it needs to have the fire department come in and check and make sure the place is safe, just like any other hotel or public safe place of assembly would require, because it's completely skipped that whole step.
So, hold
Yeah.
on a second. Jen, do you know if other towns have required safety inspections for these type of operations? And is that something that is, that a town has the right to require?
I am not certain on whether they do inspections. I know on the permitting side, there are two different approaches. One is in some municipalities where they require an annual permit. That's done through the Board of Selectmen and a separate municipal ordinance. And then those that regulate it through the planning process, it, instead of the use being permitted, it is by conditional use permit. And so they would come before you. And for example, Guilford, their conditional use permits are valid for 3 years and then they need to reapply.
I think we need to look at what they've got.
So that,
This is
yeah,
like-
I mean,
it's a
some of
little
the,
bit
some of the,
deeper. Some of these places could have an outhouse. I mean, it's not, it's
Some of
funny,
these
but
places
it's.
do
it's-
have
I've
they
heard
do
of
have
Providence
outhouses,
Lake.
You know, and that would have to be prohibited in my eyes. If there
Yes.
was gonna be an Airbnb there couldn't be situations
we're
like that.
going on a rabbit hole
Yeah.
with that one,
But I mean,
if the outhouse is
It's legal,
approved
it's
and
legal, I'm not gonna
legal,
argue that, but it's not sanitary, so that's where the fire department comes in for a safety inspection.
so I'm not gonna say that, how could I say, oh, it'd be okay to have these, you know, operations unsafe? Like
That's what I'm
right.
saying, they
Yeah.
are.
Well,
They're
Maybe,
creating an unsafe
maybe.
situation for the neighborhood.
But
If they're on if they're on a narrow street, which a lot of them are, and they're blocking the roadway, and a house in the end catches fire, and if I pull in with engine one and I've on some of these back roads and I've
Just
got
ain't
cars
right.
lining one side of it, I can't get through it.
and so I think that was one
I
of the
would.
things that we wanted
Just to be clear, I would.
that was
I don't
one of the
think you
things that we, that I, you know, wanted to address, right? But back to the permitting aspect, would it have to be something that would come before the board? I mean, we're talking probably 100 plus, if not more.
Whatever. Yeah.
And
I don't think the conditional use permit, the way it's set up now, would pretty much
Cover all
fail
that.
every one of them,
Yep.
because it's the way it's
so
worded
it
and.
could.
couldn't
So
you
you have
take,
to-
couldn't you just look at another town that
So-
is doing the permitting.
So
Yeah.
we can.
Yeah.
So some of the challenges are, there are other towns that have instituted regulations, and those towns are caught up in court cases because there are property owners that are fighting it. So like, we need
understand
to
what
be,
you're saying.
we need to be careful
Well, we need to be
about,
careful that our citizens that own houses aren't gonna be suing us either.
That's what we could do.
Would you rather go that way? I mean, cause they have a right to sue because their property that they have, that they purchased, is being commercially rented next door, and they're no longer having neighbors. They don't know who's gonna be in the house next door.
that's.
Could be a
people's-
kegger
that's
every
that's
week.
people's right, and I'm not gonna say
I
that,
mean,
I just,
the other
I
way-
just wanna say that I just wanna say that if we go down the path of adding, regulations, I think we wanna be careful, right? I think we wanna make sure that we're not overstepping our bounds, and we wanna be fair to both sides.
Well, what would be fair that if I ran a business and I had to be in a commercial district, and then somebody does a year-round Airbnb, that's commercialized, that's, in my eyes, that's where I get caught up with the whole, is it commercial, is it not?
Well,
Should
when
it
I
come in for a
asked,
site
when I
plan?
asked the state
It
about
is
this,
commercial though, and
I
it
know.
should.
Yeah,
when I asked the state, same definition as Jen, they gave the time frame, but they said that commercial is, in fact, somebody who is in a residential area that is not living in the premises. That it's being used specifically for.
yeah, I just read the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty,
But
it's
it's
clear,
pretty
but
dry.
it's not clear.
Yeah.
But I think what we're looking for is you could do a permit with not so much the restrictions, but to say, like you would an occupancy permit, you have to have certain things to pass an occupancy permit.
Sure.
So why would their occupancy permit not be attached to their actual permit to rent? You don't have to go after them because you got it right there. If you went out and did an inspection of the home and they have an occupancy permit, you've already got that. It's been inspected for all those things. It's been inspected for the fire. It's
Right,
been
but a
inspected.
home residence versus a commercial use is two different things too.
Right, so when they do the permit, then it becomes commercial. Then it's something separate, right? Then it's something different. Then what you would require of a commercial would be what you would require on that permit.
I mean, think about it. Some of these bathrooms that they're claiming they have full bathrooms are literally in a closet.
And the obstruction is already
And
illegal.
unless you've gone in to pull somebody out of a bathtub that's fallen down because it's too tight and they can't get in there and there's no room to move around, I don't think you understand why there's regulations on how big they have to be.
I think he gets it.
No, I get it.
Some of these places they're very old, okay? They're camps. They're not really even houses. A lot of them are camps. And they're renting these places and who God knows what's in them, okay? But that's not the bigger problem. The bigger problem is, right now, we have nobody to go to if there is a problem. I've come down here several times. I've talked to this poor woman 100 times, gone through different things that are happening within our association. But because you have no ordinance and your zoning is not such that it will cover any of the things that are actually happening, we need something.
Well, the thing is, right now, it's not in the zoning, therefore it's not allowed. And if it's happening and you can prove that it's happening, then yes, Peter has the ability to go put a cease and desist.
I've done that. I've come down and I've talked to her.
So if he can't do that now,
He
the way
can't
the
do
rules
it.
are in this town, then what I'm saying is we need to come up with something that actually works.
He, the way it's written, he cannot go and do a cease and desist on these. It needs to be clear.
So I'm not gonna comment on that one. I won't comment on that.
Okay, but anyway,
Yeah, so again, I think there's a balance here, right? And I wanna be careful because I don't wanna penalize folks that are doing this the right way,
right,
right?
yep,
And I'm sorry to call Tom out, but Tom Daniels is here. He has come and talked to us a couple of times this summer about this particular topic. He runs, he has a house on a lake. He's the next door neighbor. He rents out the house next door. That is part of his income. He does a very good job of it. And he did come in to us earlier this year and gave us, quite a bit of statistics on the amount of short-term rentals in Wakefield versus other towns. Like it's a lot less. I'm not trying to discount that there could be challenges in some areas. I'm not doing that at all. I'm just saying I want to be very cognizant of that. I
Right.
don't want to penalize somebody that has been doing this well for a long time. Right? Does that, I hope that makes sense to people, right?
When they're not violating it and they're not pissing the neighbors off, and he is the neighbor in that case, so.
He controls
He
the
has a
zone.
lot more control than the
Right.
places that are
Sure.
that are being brought up to our
So-
attention right now.
So here, we could go on all night to be, I want to ask, do you have anything else that you want to add, or is there anyone else that would like to speak?
I'm
Yep.
good, I just want to see if there's something that we
Yeah,
can.
so I
take on.
appreciate you coming down, I really do. I think I don't know if we're gonna solve this tonight.
I don't think we're gonna solve it tonight.
Thank you.
But yeah, so it looks like someone else wants to speak.
I'll be brief.
Okay,
Steve Bischoff, I'm on Pennsylvania Avenue in East Wakefield.
okay,
There are definitely people that do it right, and
Yeah.
those people are not the problem.
sure,
It's the people that sell, buy a property, never come in, don't care what goes on. Some of the things that we've seen and observed are exactly what you've seen. If it sounds like Fireside, how many people don't have exit windows if there's a fire in these rentals? If we look at it as a safety direction.
Sure.
You're saying that you're going to permit short-term rentals and add a permit to it to the town. Well, if you're doing that permit and permitting short-term rentals, which are not currently permitted, I'm sure that it's pretty reasonable to be able to put conditions of that permit. Conditions like a fire inspection. If a house is permitted and has an occupancy permit for 3 bedrooms, which is what their septic matches to, they can't advertise it for 6 bedrooms because it's happening all the time. We have like 35 examples.
Well, most of these houses were built pre-zoning too, just to be clear.
Yep.
So they did
So
not
who knows
have-
what
they-
septic
They did
system.
not have an inspection.
Right.
On their building. They do not meet current building codes.
I mean, we had last winter, we had that terrible CO death. It was an owner. But what happens when that happens to rentals? Because people never even had a system set up. Just for the goodness of everybody, we need to look at that. If we're gonna permit and issue a permit allowing short-term rentals, doing a conditional use permit does make sense, in my opinion. That's enough. But just, some thoughts
yeah,
on that.
no, I appreciate that.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else? Anyone else want to speak? Tom?
Yes,
Yeah,
if I could.
sure.
So I appreciate people's comments and inputs and thoughts. I think that what tends to get brought up are the outliers. What people want to talk about are the exceptions, not the rules, not what actually happens day in and day out with short-term rentals. So I've had a short-term rental for 20 years. I live next door. I pay the meals and room. I have a permit for that. I have a state New Hampshire burn permit. I have special insurance that requires from the insurance company that I have CO2 detectors, fire extinguishers, interconnected smoke alarms. They also go over things like stairs, handrails, all those kinds of things. And these aren't like your homeowner insurance policy where you just say, yeah, I do these things. They actually require documentation. Either they come and inspect it or I have to take pictures of it to prove that I have all of those safety regulations. That insurance costs about twice as much as the insurance that you have on your house. So totally different. We already have a lot of regulations that we need to follow in order to have a short-term rental. there's already noise ordinances. So if there's a problem with noise, you pick up the phone and you call. The town has a noise ordinance. You brought up parking. I can't speak to that as an issue. The only thing I would bring up is I'm not sure what the town can do to regulate parking on a private road. Because the majority of what we're talking about are rentals that are on private roads. So I'm not sure what the town can do to regulate parking on a private road that they don't maintain or own. So
Well,
that
if
gets
it's
a little.
if it's a public access, you cannot block a public access for
Can't
more than 15
obstruct
minutes.
a roadway.
So, but again, how are you
That's
going
state
to,
law.
how are you going to
it's state.
enforce that? Right, so,
Tow trucks.
If they're off the road, they're not blocking the public roadway, and I'm sure all the cars, if there's 10 of them at the place, they're off the road.
The state simply
depends
defines
on
it
the
as
road.
adequately off the road.
adequate parking, right,
That's
so,
correct.
and I'll just bring up that the state just passed new regulations, which town's going to adopt, regarding ADUs and public and parking, and they've now lowered the requirements of parking
Correct.
as it relates to building, so you're going kind of in the opposite direction, or what you're looking at is the opposite direction of what the state is mandating in terms of parking regulations. All the things you're talking about, I already do. So
You're not one
so they
that's
don't-
popping up as a
they
complaint
don't-
though, that's.
right, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna put more burden on me. So just to go backwards a little bit, Doug mentioned it. There's approximately 86 houses that are short-term rentals in this town. You can probably add maybe another 10 to 15 on there. If, statistically, you wanna say that number is not accurate based on all of so that all comes from a survey done by the US Bureau, American Community Service Estimates, which shows we have 2,210 housing units, and it lists that as of October 2023, 3.9% of them are short-term rentals, that's 86. If you go online and you look at VRBO or Airbnb, it's gonna tell you where all the rentals are. By the way, they're all on Mellow Lake.
That doesn't include the ones
the
realtors.
So what about
So-
the 27 that aren't?
Right, so there's,
What do you do about those ones?
right, and none of that's gonna get fixed by what you're talking about. The 15 or 20 people that are renting their houses that don't.
But don't we have an obligation to make sure that people are safe, and at the same time our natural resources are protected?
What I'm saying is that those 10 or 15 people who aren't renting on Airbnb and VRBO and are just doing one-off stuff on their own, they're not gonna do anything that you're asking them to do anyway. They're not gonna raise their hand, they're not gonna get a permit, they're not gonna follow any of these rules anyway. They're gonna keep doing, they're gonna do stuff that they've been doing all along.
But if somebody came to the,
Until an interested party goes and complains.
exactly.
Right,
And
yep,
if there was, regulations around that, then they would have to
enforce it.
comply.
right, so,
So-
yeah, I just wanna, and then I wanna, again, because you're talking about regulating things that are already regulated. So I wanna give you two things. One, you were talking about definitions, and Jen gave the definition that's used by the DRA. So the DRA, right, Jen, that was the DRA's definition. So the DRA has a definition, and that is used to determine who pays the 8.5% meals and rooms tax and who does not, right? So that's one definition the state uses. The state also has a second definition, which, and I'm not saying it's in my opinion, it's a better definition.
Okay.
And that's 41A semicolon 1, Roman numeral 5, which defines a vacation rental or short-term rental means an individually or collectively owned single-family house or dwelling unit, or any unit or group of units in a condominium, cooperative or timeshare, or owner-occupied residential home that is offered for a fee and for less than 30 consecutive days. And that goes, the purpose of this chapter, vacation rentals and short-term rentals are residential uses of the property and do not include a unit that is used for any non-residential use, including retail, restaurant, banquet space, event center, or other similar uses. So that's a, if you will, a state definition of a short-term rental from the housing part of it
Right.
versus the DAR part, which I think you commented, the DAR, they're doing it to say, do I collect meals tax or don't I collect meals tax? That's what they're looking at. Because they don't collect meals tax for, your month-to-month rental off of that house over there.
So still you have 27 other ones not paying a meal tax, which you're paying, right?
Right, but you're not gonna get those people, I'm just saying that you're not, no matter what rules you put in place, those outliers that you're talking about, they're not gonna fold into this. They won't. They're not now.
My point of this is to put wording in with violations so that when people do complain, I'm not saying they're gonna complain. This shouldn't make it any harder on you because unless you got people that are constantly pissing the neighbors on the other side off, you really won't have an issue. But if you have people that are habitually coming in to complain about what's going on next door, right? Then there needs to be something in town in place so that we can go in and investigate and see what's going on. Is it adequate? Is it okay? Is it not okay? Because we have nothing right now.
So, I hear you, and again, some of those things already exist, right? If it's a noise
Some.
problem, right, then they call the police.
Well,
If
noise-
there's, if
Well,
they're,
it's gotta
if
be
they're-
35 decibels or
if they've
something
got a-
like that, if I'm correct.
It's not,
I don't know that
I don't think there's a
that
decibel
came up in the
reading
gun.
on it.
There's no decibel
It's,
level.
there
It's a
isn't a
nuisance.
noise on it, it's a nuisance.
Right, it's a nuisance factor. Then there's the, if they have fires, right, they have to have a fire permit. They call the fire department because somebody's having a big, huge fire out on the lake. The fire department gets a call, they shut it down, right? Those regulations exist.
They don't get enforced. I can tell you of an incident in town where somebody goes out there all night long, runs a dozer, nothing happens. Nothing happens. That's a
I
nuisance,
can just
that's a
tell you that-
nuisance, right?
I
That's
can
a
just-
nuisance.
But those regulations exist. That's
Yeah,
all I can tell
yeah.
you. You know, if somebody, I feel pretty confident because I know instances of it happening. If somebody's having a fire and your neighbor doesn't like it because it's too big or it's loud and they're wondering, they can call the fire department. The fire department will say they have a permit or they don't have a permit, and they will go out and they will deal with it.
Well, I mean, it depends on the situation. I mean, I've had situations where you'll see people go out and the people that call and complain lose their fire permit too, because it's not adequate, doesn't meet the permit process. But my point is that when the fire department goes out and checks that, there is a specific, a very clear cut and dry, this is what you need to meet for your fire permit. You have to be 25 feet away from any structure, including fences. Docks are considered structures, right? You have to be, and it can only be 2 feet in diameter, right? So when you get there and it's a 3-foot diameter fire pit and it's 20 feet away from a building, well, do you think they're gonna be allowed to burn? No. So, like I said, if you're going in and they're not living at the residence and they're renting it out as a commercial entity, and they're constantly having a nuisance and they're not paying all these fees or everything that you're going through, they're not doing it the right way that you're doing it. And I can tell you that some of the ones that were brought to my attention are the ones that are not doing it on Airbnb, they're not doing it elsewhere, but they are definitely advertising through Facebook or whatever they do. And they definitely are over advertising the capacity of the building. And then it becomes a nuisance because there's plenty of stuff in town to go after it. The problem is there's nothing to continually, there's no fines. They're gonna keep doing it because why, if they make $5,000 for a week to rent it out, do you think even if there was $100 fine a day, do you think they're gonna care?
Cash is king. Is there a bedroom limit on Airbnbs?
No.
In terms of when you go out and advertise
Yeah,
it,
but when it becomes not an Airbnb anymore and it becomes a hotel.
no, that's all blurred and intertwined now. So, VRBO is owned by Expedia.
And can somebody do like a Airbnb or a short, we'll call it a short-term rental, because that's really what it is. Airbnb is I don't know, basically a commercial use, right, where you can advertise and you go through
It's a
Airbnb.
platform.
It's a platform, we'll call it, right? They're really short-term rentals, or so Airbnb doesn't control what a short-term rental is. That's a place you advertise.
They're not
It's a
regulated.
network.
No, but what I'm saying is like, you're on Airbnb, you're on Vrbo, whatever it is, right? Other people don't have to be. What tells you you
Right.
have to be on those sites?
You don't.
Exactly.
Yeah, sure.
So to go and do research and say, okay, there's 27 Airbnbs in the area and 5, it means nothing, really. It could be a baseline.
I think,
No,
I
well,
think you
no,
could,
are you talking about the numbers that I gave you?
No, I'm just talking
Those
in
are
general.
totally different.
No, I'm just talking in general, to use those numbers as a baseline.
Oh, no, I'm,
Kinda,
no, my numbers came from a survey done by the American Community Survey as part of the Census Bureau. So that's where I got my numbers. What I'm saying is that I did a gut check on those numbers and looked at what the easiest one to look at to see all the rentals in town is VRBO. And then I went out and literally counted all the ones on VRBO, and it came in pretty close to that 80 some odd number.
because I've thought about Airbnb in my place, and I wouldn't go on Airbnb and advertise it. Maybe I'd go on Facebook and advertise it, And there's a lot of people, I think, that are like that.
People can go,
And it
right,
affects it's too bad that it affects everybody.
right, and
That's
there are certainly people who do all of the above, right? They have their own websites, they do Facebook, there's lots of different ways to
There was
promote
over
and advertise
25
the
of
ways.
them on Level Lake alone this summer that I
So-
saw on Facebook.
It comes back again, you talked about the economics of it, right? The economics that I mentioned before, and I'll mention it again, is that as a short-term rental owner, you live and die by your ratings, right? If you don't have good ratings, if you go in and you have somebody brought up an outhouse,
Well,
who's- you're not
it's
gonna-
usually listed when you rent
Well,
it.
when you
You're
go
not-
to Kangamangas Highway and you rent
Well,
a
what you're saying is though
campsite.
that they don't, that they're
So that's the
way
$100 a day
exaggerating.
rental, not the $5,000 a week.
But those places aren't gonna continue. Meaning the person who advertises and put out
That's
there that they've
opinion,
got
right?
a 4-bedroom house that sleeps 20. They're not gonna get those ratings. Because people are gonna go in there and go, what the, I'm sleeping on a futon and a sleeping bag.
So,
I mean,
if we were to put regulations in for short-term rentals, right, and there was a permit request, less people are gonna come to town now? Is basically the way that when I heard you say they come here, short-term homeowners are here, and there was a permit request, less people are gonna come to town now, buy from our local stores, and they do all this. So, if that house, are the people still not gonna come anymore?
for what, I'm sorry, I missed your question.
You just have a vacant house, wouldn't you? If you were to say, I'm not gonna get the permit,
They're not gonna
well,
get
then now
those
you have a
ratings.
house.
They're gonna-
It has to
What
be,
he's
People are
saying
gonna
is
go in
if
there
they
and
don't
go,
step
what
it
the-
up and
I'm sleeping on a
have a
futon
good
and a
product, they're not gonna
sleeping bag.
continually getting the rentals.
put
Right.
regulations.
That's exactly the way it works.
I'm just saying.
But whether
it
it was a
needs to be
short-term
safer
rental-
Is what I'm saying.
Or the house was sold and somebody lived there permanently year-round, I feel the same number of people would still come to town, still purchase the places.
No, not,
It's
no.
basically the way that
That's not
when I
true.
heard you. So you would hold a home, the homeowners and keep it vacant, taxes, these vacationers come, they buy
Hold
from
a home
our
and-
stores. Yeah, you would buy up a home, a second home, and just keep it vacant.
Well, I would be, my house is not the norm.
And anybody,
Right,
you just
the
have
majority,
a vacant
the
house.
majority of the short-term rentals
If you were to say,
that
if I want
exist
to.
are
then now you
somebody
have a
who
house.
has purchased a home on a lake.
If they don't step it
They
up,
use it some of the time and they rent it some of the
have a
time.
good
That's
product, they're not gonna continue.
that's the middle ground. That's the majority of the people fit into that. Then there's,
whether it was a
then there's all the
short-term
other pieces that come,
rental,
there's outliers, but the
Somebody
majority of the
lived
people are
permanently
people who,
year-round.
I
feel
bought
the
this
same
house,
number of
it's
people
on a lake,
that still come to town.
I don't get
Still purchase from places.
8 weeks of vacation. So I come up, I use it a week, I use it 2 weeks, I use it a couple of weekends, and then the rest of the time they rent it. That's the majority of the short-term rental people.
Yeah, you would buy up a
So,
home, either a second
If,
a home,
if
just keep
they,
it vacant.
if they don't or can't or no longer allowed to rent it, what would happen to that property? The majority of the short-term potentially sell it.
If I want to.
They would potentially keep it and stretch, figure out financially how to make it work. Some of the time. If they sell it, that's gonna lower, if you accumulate lots of that, that's gonna depress the market, because now the market would get flooded with houses for sale.
Have you seen how much they've gone up on the lakes around here?
Yeah, they're
very-
I'd be happy to watch all 89 of them go up for sale right now.
Oh, yeah, get lower the price and I could get in.
And it depends on whether you live on the lake or don't live on the lake, because if you don't live on the
Obviously
lake,
not that overpriced, so they wouldn't be being bought up.
but you're going off.
I think we're
same
going
time.
off the
Right,
rails
so
on that.
my second, the other thing I wanted to bring up, because the idea of a permit was being brought up. So of course, within our community, and it would potentially. I don't want you to get hung up on the term I'm gonna use in the document, I'm gonna keep it, but town already has a business contact information sheet that gets filled out by any business that's here in town, right? Lots of that. This is it. That's gonna depress. I mean, I have a business flooded with houses for sale on my other
How much
property.
they've gone up on the lakes around here.
Yeah,
I filled this out.
I'd be happy to watch
And the town has
89
this
of them go up
information.
for sale right now.
Oh, yeah, get lower the price and I could
I
get in.
don't know what, it depends on whether you live on the lake or don't live on. To me, this is, that's what live on the lake, this is who I am, this is what I do, I have a short-term rental. But you're going this property, here's my contact information in case size of a nice city, and this is how you get in touch with me, the idea
How
of a
many
permit
people would you
is-
say have actually filled that out?
So of course,
You're
within
asking
our
the wrong
community.
person, 'cause I don't have,
Not a lot.
all of that
I
is
can tell you
done
not a lot.
through
want
the
you to get
building
hung up on
department, and I don't have anything
So-
to do with the building
So for
department.
right now, that's not a requirement.
But that's
Tell
no
them
different,
right now
that's no
today, this
different than
business
a,
contact information sheet
than the
that gets filled
contractor's
out by
yard.
Any business
Yeah,
that's.
which was a requirement, but
Nobody does
so
it,
that was a
I have
requirement
a
at the
business.
time.
and nobody does it.
That doesn't.
Well, I'm not saying nobody,
I
but
don't
But
wanna-
it goes back to the.
I'm gonna tell you, it's
thing.
just, it's another thing that was put in place
I
with
would
good
hope,
intentions.
I do, I hope that you did.
It's another thing that was put in with good intentions that does not go.
You're trying to
This
regulate
is-
morals,
that's-
you're trying to
This
regulate
is who I am, this is what I do.
right, so professionalism, and
This property, here's my contact.
And again, I'm not complaining
some
about how
people
you're
are gonna
doing
do
your
it right and
business.
some aren't, no matter how many regulations
I-
you put on it.
Right, so what, exactly, Steve, so what you're
I
suggesting
don't
is,
have,
Not a lot.
all of that
I
is
can-
done
can't enforce
through
this.
the building
you
department.
can't enforce
and I don't
that,
have
you can't
anything
enforce
to do with
this.
the department.
So now we're gonna put some more regulations on.
But that's no.
that we can't enforce
That's
either.
no different than.
I
that's
don't
not
understand
what-
where
no,
you're
that's-
going.
That's not what I'm suggesting, I'm suggesting putting in,
Which was a requirement, but
there's plenty of stuff that's been put in that does not get enforced, that does not get followed, that falls between the wayside. It's not just those two.
I don't wanna-
it goes
Uh,
back to the.
I'm gonna tell you, it's just, my it's point is that we need to put something in that actually has grounds
I hope that
for
you did.
the town to be able to go in and address the concerns.
You're trying to
that are coming
regulate
in.
morals, you're trying to.
And
regulate-
again, if you're not having
Right, so.
your house, or
Professionalism.
your next door, first of all. And again, I'm not having people come up and have a kegger party because whatever graduation party, whatever it was they decided to rent the camp on.
So what you're
And
suggesting.
if they did, I'm sure you, well, one, you
Can't
probably
enforce
wouldn't
this.
knowing you're living next
You can't
door.
enforce that, you can't enforce this.
But I can tell you
So
that
now
one
we're
of the
gonna put
places
some
that was
more
next door to
regulations
us
on
on Lake was,
that we can't
this
enforce
happened
either.
prior to the new owners getting.
I don't
in.
understand where you're going with
That's
this.
not what I'm suggesting, I'm suggesting putting in. This place was built on stilts. Just to give you an idea, okay? It was built on stilts in 1914 is when it was, it's actually, that was on one of the concrete pillars on it.
Point is that we need to put something in that actually.
It was
has
built out
grounds
of
for
crates
The
from
town
Pratt and
to be able
Whitney.
to go in and address the concern.
And I'm not joking about that
Well,
because it said Pratt and Whitney all underneath this building that was just removed.
Your house or your next door. for
The
some-
windows in it were no bigger
You're
than
not
2 foot
having
by 3
people
foot.
come up and have a kegger party.
Nowhere near big enough to be
because
escaping.
whatever
Half
graduation
of them
party,
didn't
whatever
know.
it was they decided to rent the camp on.
And they had
If
almost
did, I'm
60
sure you-
people there.
One, they probably wouldn't knowing you're living next door.
60 people.
But I can
No.
tell you that one of the places that was next door. to
We
us
own
on
the
Lake
road,
was-
actually, in this
this
particular
happened
case.
prior
We
to
own the whole
owners
road.
getting it, which is
Still,
what happened.
it doesn't matter if we own it or not, it's an access, right? It's a public
This place
access
was
to the
built
road.
on stilts. Just to
If-
give you an idea, okay? It was
No,
built
with
on
60
stilts
cars
in
shown, this lot is
1960s
0.2 acres.
When it was, it's actually, that was on one of
Just
the
imagine
concrete
60
pillars.
people on 0.2 acres.
It was built out of crates.
It's a lot of people, right? That's not a, that's an awful lot of people. That was a lot of people when they filled up their party boat and the jet skis and took off. There was still a lot of people on site,
Were no bigger than 2 foot by
right?
3 foot.
That's what we're trying to avoid.
Nowhere near big
And
enough.
what I'm trying to tell, what I'm suggesting is that there are already regulations
And
in
they had
place
almost
to
60
deal with exactly what you just said, right?
Right.
So enforce those regulations. Why put more regulations on top of what already exists?
Still, it
Well, I
doesn't
think
matter,
as-
it didn't stop.
You're gonna,
So what would you add to make it stop?
Let me try to
60 cars shown, this lot is 0.2 acres.
round this back and make this,
But just imagine 60 people on 0.2 acres.
make some sense tonight. Here's what I would suggest.
That's a lot of people,
Jen,
right?
if you could
That's
do some
not,
research
that's,
for
that's an
us.
awful lot of people.
Are
That
there
was a
other
lot of people when
towns
they filled
that,
up their party
as part of their
boat and the jet
short-term
skis and
rental
took off? There's
ordinance,
still a lot of
they
people
have
on
any
site,
control over parking?
right? That's what we're trying
Are
to.
there other
avoid.
towns that have
What
any
I'm trying to
control
tell- what
over
I'm
how many
suggesting
bedrooms or how many
Already
people they
regulations in place to
rent
deal with
out,
exactly
or they
what you just said.
advertise, or they're allowed to rent out based upon their
So enforce those
septic?
regulations. Why put
and
more
or bedrooms.
regulations on top of
And
what
then
already exists?
What might a permitting process
Because
look
it
like
didn't stop.
if,
you're gonna,
So
and only if,
so
there
what
was
would
some
you
level
add
of safety
to make it
inspection as
stop?
part of that? Let me try to. And just a permit to permit doesn't make much sense, but I'm not gonna say that if there was a somewhat efficient way to ensure that a dwelling was safe, had adequate. There are other towns that, as part of their short-term rental ordinance. Smoke detectors and such, it's not necessarily a terrible idea. And Tom, I do understand that, through the insurance company that you go through, that's a requirement. I completely understand that. There's no, I can't imagine that everyone renting out their places and then is doing something like that. And I wanna be clear here, that could be a complete overreach. Because these are considered, this is another form of a residential dwelling. And we don't ask every house in town to come to town hall and to get a permit to make sure that they are safe. Like, yes, there's occupancy permits, but as properties change hands and all that. So I don't know if that would be an overreach, but I do think it's worth researching.
That's you've hit upon
I can't imagine
what is making all lawyers happy.
Yeah,
Right.
right, and I don't wanna go down that.
Everybody here gets the properties assessed. If you don't, the assessors all come out and they look at your property.
Because these.
You don't have to let them in.
This
I mean,
is
they're,
another
and
form
they
of
can't force themselves
residential
in.
dwelling.
So, now you're suggesting, well,
Every house.
in this example, now you're gonna force me as a property owner, you're gonna force me to allow
they are safe.
people from the,
I'm gonna say absolutely on that, because you're creating a motel.
You can't say absolutely on that, because if you say
It's a
absolutely on
motel.
that, you gotta go to every house in the whole damn town
No,
and have an
no,
inspection,
when you
because there's
create-
hundreds of
when
houses
you
that are just as
create a
bad as
hotel.
me.
So.
When you turn it into a commercial hotel, yes.
People are responsible for their own actions. If you rent a house that's the shithole, then you're responsible for staying there overnight.
If you don't, the assessors all come out
I
and they
mean-
look at your property.
You can't regulate stupidity.
I mean, and they can't force themselves in. So.
It doesn't get enforced.
So, just stop there for a second. Jen, is that something that you can do for us to do a little bit of research?
You're gonna force me to allow
Yes.
people from the, I'm
I'm gonna say absolutely on that, because you're
Not that I wanna
creating a
prolong
motel.
this to another meeting, but I think
It's
we need to do that. And if Jen can do some research in the next scheduled meeting, we can talk about what, might come up.
When you turn it into a commercial hotel, yes.
People are responsible for their
Everyone
own
okay with
actions.
that?
If you rent a house that's the shithole.
Does
then
anyone else,
you're
while you're
responsible
here,
for
have
staying
anything
there
to?
overnight.
I don't know if you wanted to reach out to
I
people.
mean,
Yeah, is there anyone on
you can't regulate
on Zoom that
stupidity.
has anything that they wanna say before we move on?
It doesn't get enforced.
I don't know if anyone's moderating
Stop
it.
there for a
I
second.
raised my
Jen,
hand though.
Is that something that you can do for Okay, us? who is that?
My name is Peter Rondo,
Yes.
with the New Hampshire Vacation Rental and Tourism Association.
Okay.
I just wanted, I know you guys are in your research phase. I just wanted to give you guys some stuff to look into. You mentioned trying to regulate what we refer to as a heads and beds thing. Sunapee is in current litigation over that very issue.
Everyone okay with that?
I don't know if you guys mentioned trying to
anyone else,
regulate
while
day
you're here,
use,
have anything
but
to-
Madison has 4 cases around that right now.
Yeah, is there
And then there's
anyone
one
on
case.
What was that again? I don't-
Madison?
Madison,
No, I know, I heard Madison.
day case.
Day use.
Yeah, like
I don't know if
I
anyone's
believe
moderating it.
the cases were very similar because they were heard together. I bet they were trying to regulate the number of days owners could use their house or rent their house.
Sure.
And those
Okay.
were, I believe there's a ruling on that, but I'm not sure what it is yet. So there's also another similar case that's in the federal court. It's under the 42 USC 1983 deprivation of rights under color law. Case around short-term rentals prohibiting uses. That is out of, I believe, Kearsarge Lighting Precinct, KLP. 4 cases around that right now. Just wanted to give you guys some of those to
What was
look
that
into because I
again?
know
I don't
no
know.
town wants to get into
No,
litigation.
I know, I heard.
So,
Day case.
Day use.
and then just from our perspective, we hear some of the concerns about the noise, the trash, the parking, the parties. And we realize that there is no perfect solution to regulating them. But what we're trying to do as an association is teach responsible rental standards so that we can regulate them from a cultural standpoint versus something that towns have to now somehow police. When you guys, you were admitting yourself, it's hard to enforce the regulations that you have at the moment, and I understand that, right? We have things that we need to take care of in town, why do we need to add more? So I just wanted to assure you guys from the association standpoint, we're trying to instill a cultural standard of being responsible renters, and you can check out, on our website, we have some of those standards, it's nhvrta.org. From our perspective, if you wanna check that out, we are working to kind of create some industry standards for renters, and we recognize it doesn't apply to everyone. People are gonna do whatever they want regardless of what rules you make. What we're trying to do is or what standards there are, but we're trying to make this a win-win for everybody. Cultural standpoint
Sure.
versus
Okay,
something that towns have to
all
now
right.
somehow
No,
police.
appreciate those comments, thank you.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions, you can just send me an email at hello@nhvrta.org. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions. Things that we need to take care of in town, why do we need to add
Okay,
more?
thank you very much.
So I just wanted to assure you guys from the association standpoint, we're trying
All
to
right, is there
instill
anyone
a
else?
cultural standard of being responsible renters, and you can check out on our
right.
website, we have some of
All
those
right, well,
standards.
listen,
It's
I appreciate everyone's,
nhvrta.org.
everyone's
If you wanna
comments
check that out,
tonight,
we are
and
working
I
to
think we're gonna
kinda create some
continue
industry
on the
standards for
short-term
renters,
rental
and we
discussion at our
recognize it
next
doesn't
meeting.
apply to everyone, people are gonna do whatever they want regardless of what rules you make,
So, yes.
or what
All right,
standards there are.
so,
But we're
moving
trying
on to our
make this
next
a win-win for everyone.
topic, waterfront access. So,
No,
we
appreciate those comments.
take a
Thank
look
you.
Yeah,
at,
if you guys have any questions, you can just send me an email at
page
hello@nhvrta.org.
so this came up
I'd be happy
because
to
of
try to answer any
a
questions.
conceptual review that was at our
Yes, sir.
last meeting, and also some conversations that I had with our town attorney. So if you remember, one of the questions that the person that had come before us had talked about is whether or not tonight and on a particular on this particular property, that while our regulations talk about having, requiring so much shore frontage to allow
Moving on to our next
access to another
topic,
lot,
waterfront access.
that it did not specifically say whether that needed to be contiguous. In other words, like, could they break it up into two 75-foot sections or 50 and then 100
So this came up
here and
because of a
so, according to our attorney, Steve Whitley, there, it is assumed, more common sense, the way that our regulations are written, is that it needs to be contiguous. We've never, like, there's nothing else we've done in town that we've allowed, like, say, a home to be built on a piece of property and
never set a
street
precedent for anything
frontage,
else.
and you can break it up into all these different segments. So no, it would be 100% reasonable to say, yes, it would need to be contiguous. That being said, it's not a terrible idea to actually state that in our zoning, so that it is not a question next time, right? And so that is something that I think we should consider as a board, whether or not we want to update our standards to state that, right? Is that the other aspect of that conceptual review was that our zoning currently doesn't talk about any like area requirements for such granting water access. So what was required in our zoning is 150 feet of shoreline, area for parking, which I think was 350 square feet, and then a recreational area that was like 800 square feet. But it did not talk about how much true area on that piece of property should there be to make that reasonable, whether or not we want to update. So could somebody come in with a plan that shows something like, this is the other aspect of we need 150 feet of frontage. We're going to make it 1 inch wide. Our zoning currently doesn't talk about we're going to create a 1 foot pathway out back to our parking area of 350 and a recreation area of 800. And we're good because we meet zoning. So that is not, my opinion, that is not how what our zoning intended when that was put into place. If you look across other towns in the state that have similar zoning around water access, they include additional requirements around basically area, and depends upon the town. Some of them say you need to go, 150 feet of frontage, and you need to go at least, be able to go at least 100 feet back from that to the property line, or at least 100 feet back. Some require a half an acre of area for each dwelling that is, for the recipient lot. There was one town that was, I guess, the least, what I'll call the least intrusive, but was requiring a quarter acre or 10,000 feet for area. So if I looked at that property that person had come in and talked to us about and applied the one that I believe is least impactful with the 10,000 square feet, it would work on that. Some of them say you need to go. To me, I think it's reasonable that we as a board consider putting forth to the voters that we add a couple things to our water access requirements. One, that we state that it needs to be continuous. In other words, like, I don't think there's much argument, but it makes it clear, no one's gonna be able to question that. There was one that we add something in there around an area requirement. Again, looking across other towns in New Hampshire, if I looked at that, many of them have that. I think it was, personally, I think it was an oversight when that zoning was put into play. I think it seems reasonable that we put something on that property. So I'm gonna stop there. To me, I think it's reasonable. What are folks, any comments, or thoughts on that? That we add a couple things to our water access requirements. One,
I think as far as the 1 inch you're talking there, I mean, even when we do a flag lot, it's usually a 50-foot right of way.
right, but we have no regulation to say that it can't be 1 inch. That's the problem right now. Two, right, so, listen, we add something in.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
should be a minimum.
Right.
Shouldn't be too many of these coming up anyway. There's not a lot of access.
No, there's not.
I mean, the only thing I'd say is for some reason, there was an existing lot that was separated by something in the middle. So it wasn't continuous, which is probably never gonna happen.
Comments? Right.
And someone wanted to sell that to go along with some other lots.
Yep.
It could be
Right.
grandfathered
I think
in.
as far as the 1 inch you're talking there, I mean, even when we do
That's
a
probably
flag
not gonna
lot,
happen anyway, because like I said, it's very,
Right, but we have no regulation to say that it can't be 1
be
inch.
very
That's
rare
the
to even
problem.
have any
Right, so,
access.
right. But the
Well, that's
way
what
that
I'm
it's
trying to
written
get
at. Yeah,
now,
no, I agree.
it's
It's
opened up
true.
to, right.
Shouldn't be too many of these coming up.
However, somebody wanted to come in here with a plot
A lot of
plan
access to
and
that.
there's not carve it off.
I mean, the only thing I'd say is for
could
some
be
reason, there was an existing
very minimal,
lot that was
and
separated.
not what
by
I
something
believe
in
was,
middle.
the intention of that
So it
ordinance.
wasn't continuous, which is probably never.
So,
happened.
so if you
more
look at,
Someone wanted to
I'm
sell
sorry?
it.
just more loopholes.
Well,
Yeah, it could be.
That's all we do. That's all we've done.
so, yeah, so I don't wanna go down a rabbit hole, I promise you I don't. But in talking with the attorney, like,
Rare to even have any.
geez, there's another loophole, and he's like, look, he's like, the reality is that zoning gets updated in towns a lot of times because of what, somebody comes in and wants to try to do something, right? And you start looking into what you have on paper, very minimal. You look at it and say, geez, we didn't consider X, Y, or Z. So we said, like what you're doing to potentially address this now is not very different from a lot of other towns. Well, it's, it's just,
That's all we do.
it's just how it happens.
Well, I mean,
Right.
it's just like when you go to school and you get your first set of ABCs, that's what we put in the ordinance of how the block that we first tried to put in, and then it's like, we've done nothing but adapt and modify it and really educate it to bring it to what its full potential is, so, yeah.
So that being said, like, this is another offshoot, so I apologize, but, I do, sooner than later, like, after we get through, these, these zoning amendments that we're gonna need to, have people at town meetings on and such, like, I wanna have a conversation with Jen and her organization to see, because I know they offer this as a service, like, what would it look like for it to have an expert to go through our zoning and to look to see, like, other opportunities for us to make the zoning more efficient,
The block that we
make
first
it
tried to put in, and then it's
easier
like,
to
we've done
read.
nothing
Are
but
there
adapt
things
and
that we
modify
haven't
it,
considered?
and
Right.
things that we can remove that really don't apply anymore.
So potentially, yes. So anyways, that's a topic for another day. But, while we had this waterfront access in front of us. Sooner than later.
Right? I
After
mean,
we get through. So, yeah, no, that's, you're right. Absolutely, there could be examples of amendments that we're gonna need to
Well, there's also,
have.
yeah, I mean, you gotta be careful.
Town
because, you
meetings
know,
on and
also
such,
remove
like, I
stuff
wanna
that
have a conversation with.
is
Jen
there and
her
only ever
organization
comes up
to
once in a
see-
while.
Yes, because I know they
I
offer
mean,
this.
one
as a service.
one sentence
That
kept
happens
you,
yearly.
one sentence kept you from having a Dollar General.
One word can
And,
be, right?
and
Yes.
a noise ordinance that supposedly don't exist kept you from having a rifle range, so.
Efficient, make it easier. Potentially.
Well, the
right?
nuisance factor is what,
Yeah,
things
but I
like
mean,
that
the way it's written.
really don't apply anymore.
So potentially, yes. So let's like for another day. Go back to this, waterfront access. This waterfront. So on page 4 of the handout. So yeah, no, here is some proposed wording that we may or may not decide that we want to add. So so Article 19, waterfront access, Section D, minimum standards. So what is listed there as minimum
One sentence
standards?
kept
That's
you from
exactly
having
what's
a
there
Dollar
now.
General.
Okay, so what's not
And,
highlighted, right?
and
Yes.
a noise ordinance that
that?
supposedly don't exist kept you from having a
Are
rifle.
we voting on this or no?
We might be, potentially.
Well, the nuisance factor.
So
Yeah, but I mean, the way it's written.
potentially, we may add wording, this would go in front of the town for a vote, to do a couple of things. One, to state contiguous and continuous frontage, state the minimum exclusive shoreline frontage shall be contiguous to the area granted to the recipient lot in a single continuous length of shoreline. So in other words, you can't break it up. So Article 19, it's kind of a belt and suspenders, but it's listed there as maybe stating the obvious. The second one is minimum exclusive area. The exclusive shoreline frontage provided on the servient waterfront lot shall include an adjoining contiguous upland area reserved solely for the recipient lot or recipient dwelling unit as follows. And this ties in with what currently exists. For the first 150 feet of exclusive shoreline frontage, the exclusive area shall contain at least 10,000 square feet, about a quarter of an acre, and shall be contiguous to that frontage. Shall be contiguous to the area. For each additional 100 feet of exclusive shoreline frontage required, an additional minimum of 6,666 square feet of exclusive area shall be provided, contiguous to both the required frontage and the previously provided exclusive area. The second one is all exclusive areas shall be shown on the subdivision plat and clearly labeled as exclusive shoreline frontage and exclusive area. An adjoining contiguous upland area reserved solely for the recipient lot or recipient dwelling unit. I believe it gets to the intent of what is already in our zone. The first 150 feet of exclusive
gonna try and
shoreline
put
frontage, the
all this
exclusive
wording on
area
the
shall
ballot?
contain at least 10,000 square feet.
I'm gonna say, there's no way this is
It
gonna
would
fly.
be, so Jen, it would be a summary for each additional 100 feet.
Yeah, so I've drafted like draft warrant articles, so most of what's in this big monster document that you have in front of you, you've seen already. We just haven't like gone that step of moving it to town meeting, towards, to a hearing. So in this draft, I've kind of tried to juggle it, and organize it a little bit cleaner. And at the top of each, you'll see, like in big bold letters, it says amendment number. It's highlighted
We're
because
gonna try and put.
that's another point of conversation, is like how you want to organize these.
There's no way
Kind of a
this is
rough
gonna fly.
topic of what it is.
So
And then in
Jen,
a
it would
box,
be a
that is
summary.
the warrant. That's the piece that
Yeah,
would
so
go
I've
on
drafted,
printed
like,
on the
draft
ballot.
warrant articles,
So this
most
big
what's in this
monster
big monster
document, you would
that you have in
share
front of you, you've
um,
seen already.
with the public so that they
We
would
just
know
haven't,
what all
like,
of those
gone that step
little
of
things
moving
are,
it
what those little
to
summaries are.
town meeting,
This is what we
towards
would post
to
for a public hearing. You can make this
So,
available to
in
voters
this
in
draft,
advance
I've kind of tried to
of town meeting.
juggle it,
But yeah,
and
only those
organize it a little bit
blocks
cleaner.
in the big boxes up at the top
And
of each
at the
would be
top
what
of each,
would
you'll see, like in big bold letters,
forwarded
it says
for warrant
amendment
articles.
number. It's highlighted because
Does
that's
that
another
help,
point of
Dave?
conversation is like how you want to organize these.
Yeah, there's
and a
11
rough
of these.
topic
It's
of
a
what it
lot.
is. And then in
It's-
a box, that is
Yeah.
the warrant. That's the piece that
So
will
on just the
go
waterfront access, what
printed
are
on the ballot.
folks' thoughts on that?
So this big monster
seem
document, you
reasonable.
would share
We need to
with
look
the
at all
public
these
so that
and
they would know
possibly
what
cut.
all of those.
So
What's
hold-
mandatory
hold on.
versus
So
optional?
hold on.
Summaries
So-
are.
To talk about
This
this
is
one
what we
first.
Let's
would
talk about
post
this
for
one
a public
first.
hearing.
I got
You
something
can
to
make
say
this
about the other
available
ones
to
anyway.
voters in advance of
So
town
thoughts
meeting.
on this one, does
But
this
yeah,
make
only
sense?
those blocks
add in this
the
additional
big
wording
boxes up at
to
the top
clarify
of each
what,
would be what
You know,
would
again, from the
forwarded
contiguous
warrant
shorefront issue, as well as adding in some requirements around the area.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
I
11
have
of
no
these.
issues with this
It's a
whatsoever.
lot.
My concern is that there's 10 other items that are gonna be going up on the ballot, and
So
People
on
don't
just
like
the
that many.
waterfront access, whatever, so we can't.
This one's
so-
fine,
Okay,
fine by me.
so,
Yeah.
so, all right, so let's just stop there for a second. Jen, do we need to vote specifically on this right
mandatory
now?
versus optional.
Or do we just state, let's move this forward, have our town attorney
Yeah, by
review it?
consensus.
Say about the other ones.
What's the right process if the,
Yeah,
so.
Probably two
thoughts-
things.
thoughts
So,
on this one? Does this
first thing I
make
want to
sense?
kind of consider
Add in
here
this
is
additional
that
wording,
we're now
clarify
at the
what,
point where the clock is ticking.
You know, again,
So
from the
if you
contiguous shorefront,
want or
issue,
anticipate
as
that you
well
will
as
need to
adding some
have
requirements
2
around
hearings
the area.
before moving
Yeah.
this
I
to
have no
town
issues with this
meeting,
whatsoever.
we need to have our
My
first
concern is
hearing
that
in
there's 10
December
other
and our
items that are
second
gonna be
hearing in
going up on the
January.
ballot.
If
I don't
you
like that
we
many.
can get away with just
So,
one
we
hearing,
can't-
then we have a little bit more time and we can
So,
have that one hearing in
All right,
January.
so let's just stop there for a
That
second.
makes me a
Jen,
little
do we need to
nervous,
vote
personally.
specifically on this right now? Right, I don't think we wanna go that route, especially with if there is gonna be anything on the short-term rental side of it. What's the right process if the?
Yeah,
That's-
probably two things. So first thing I want to, yeah, I don't
consider here
it's going to be
is
tight
that
to move
we're
something on
now,
short-term rentals
at the point where
forward
the clock
this
is
year.
ticking.
Well, so,
Right.
So
sorry, to go
if
back
you
to that one.
want
I
or
think
anticipate that you will
minimally,
need to have
we
two
need to add that
hearings
as a line item in our
before
zoning.
moving
That would
this
be,
to town meeting, we need to have our first hearing in
regardless whether we put
December
any
and our second
regulation on it
hearing
or
in
not,
January.
I think it is.
If you we can
So
get
let's
away
stop
with
there. I
just
don't wanna
one
go
hearing,
on and on and
then
on,
we
but
have
that-
a little bit more
that's what-
time
So
and we
do
can
we
have
wanna
move
that
these
one
to the-
hearing in January.
If you wanna move this one to the.
That makes me a little nervous, personally.
Back.
No, to,
I don't.
Proceed.
Yeah, so Jen, do we need to, does the board need to vote specifically on this potential update to Article 19 tonight or not? Or
Yeah,
could
I
we-
don't
move it to the.
Maybe,
so
this year.
Well,
If we want to
sorry.
have a hearing in
Sorry-
December,
sorry to go back
we
to
need to
that
give
one.
Amber time
think
to get that
minimally,
posted.
We need to add
And we
that
have
as a
Thanksgiving
line
in the
item
way.
our zoning.
So,
That would be my opinion.
so we're looking at the second,
Regardless whether we
dis-
put any
second
regulation on
meeting
it or
in
not, I
December.
think it is.
we would have a little
So
bit
I'm
of
gonna stop there. I
time
don't
to
wanna go on and on.
modify
That-
things
that's what-
on the
So we wanna
at the
move these to
meeting
the-
on the 4th. So what we could do is if
This
we
one
needed
to
to
the-
make any further modifications, we could do that on the 4th.
No.
And then I could then
Proceed.
just promptly the next
so
day.
Jen, so do we need to,
Oh gosh,
does
I'm
the
having
board need
surgery
to
on the
vote
4th. This is gonna be interesting.
specifically on this?
So we can get
potential
something
update
to
Article
Amber
19 tonight?
right
or not?
afterwards.
Or could we-
And
maybe,
to get posted. So,
we wanna
but she
have
would
a
just need
hearing
time
in
before that to
December,
get the
we need to give Amber
um,
time
notice
to get
prepared.
that posted.
Okay, all right,
And we have Thanksgiving in the way.
all right, so I think,
so,
at least for tonight, I think we
So
can
we're
move on,
looking
you
at
agree?
the second,
Yeah, what I would say
second
is like for
meeting in
tonight,
December. We would have a little bit
if
of
you are
time
comfortable with
to
things, we should
modify
get them
things,
over to
on
legal
the
as soon as
meeting on the
possible so that they
4th.
have
So what we could do is
to
if we needed to
review
make any further
before the
modifications, we
hearing.
could do that on the
Um,
4th.
And then
and
I could then.
as
talk
far
to the
as
next day.
anything else within this document, we've reviewed all of this.
Correct.
So
We can get some.
Why do the mandatory, why do
Right
the
afterwards.
state regulations have to go to warrant
And,
article?
um,
The people can't vote,
Yeah.
there's
No,
no
so they
vote,
can.
So
They
she
can
just
vote
needs
and they can
time
vote it
before
down
that
if they
to
want
get
to.
but it
the,
doesn't
yeah,
matter.
Doesn't matter, and you're right.
So why don't you just
It's
post
the
it?
all right, so, listen. All
Yeah.
right, so like common sense, you're 100% right.
But I think legally you can do
yeah,
it,
what
you
I
don't
would
have to
say
go to
is
warrant
like for
article.
tonight,
Yes.
if you're
No,
comfortable
let's
with things,
talk about
we
another
should,
town.
we should get
I
them
don't-
over
I don't
to
think you
legal.
do.
As
You
soon as
do.
possible so that they have.
You
have no to legal review authority to amend before your you zoning agree. ordinance without going to town.
Well,
And as far as
Then there's, you can,
anything else within
I don't
this
see why that's,
Can we
document,
just
there's no
put one,
vote.
can we just put one line item on the ballot that says, accept the
Yeah.
laws that the
State
state
mandate.
is cramming down our throat, is sum it up that way, and then,
so I'm not sure we can.
why not?
We can
So
ask
they
legal
can.
counsel
They
that
can vote, and
question.
they can vote
One
down
question,
if they
and that
want
was
to.
one of the things I was gonna say is you can
Doesn't
ask,
matter,
so
you're
I know
right.
with
So
the
why
other
don't you
communities
post
that we
the
are working
process?
with, each individual
So, listen.
item that is discrete,
But common
we
sense, you're
are
100%
preparing
right.
it
But I
as
think legally
separate
you can do it.
articles.
You don't have to. Article.
We
Yes.
could ask legal if
Yeah,
we
let's
could
talk
bundle
about
them
other
together
towns.
and
I don't
say,
think you do.
we propose amendments to the
no
following
legal authority to
sections,
amend your
to be
zoning
compliant
ordinance without
with
going
state
to
statute. And see if that would pass muster.
Then
I
you
don't
can-
know that it would. We could
I don't see
try.
why that's-
Can we just
Mandated
put one,
by
can we just
state.
put one
It
line
should,
item on
and
the
it
ballot
should
that
be
says, accept the
people that are
laws
voting
that
to
the
know they
state
don't really get a
is cramming
vote
down our
at
throat,
this
So
and
that's
point.
sum
one
it up
thing I
that
will
way, and
say is
then,
in each
So
of the
I'm not
draft
sure we can.
articles where
not?
the change is
Legal
driven
counsel that
by
question.
a statutory
One question,
change.
and that was one of
I
the things
have
I was gonna say is
called
you
that
can ask
out in the
so I
warrant
know with the
article
other
and
communities
says
that we
this
are working
change
with,
is
each
to be
individual
compliant with state
item
law.
that is discrete. We are preparing it
So
as separate
hopefully
Steve,
articles.
Like, sorry, Jen.
We
Steve,
could
common
ask
sense,
legal
I'm
if we
100%
could
with you.
bundle them together.
100%.
I
Say,
think
Right?
that,
You spent, I
we
mean,
propose amendments to
we come
the
in, you
following
guys,
sections.
me in the
to
past,
be
we've come in
compliant
here, we've
with
argued
state
and hollered at each other
and
and
see
everything,
if
trying
that
to
would
make the
pass
best
muster.
zoning you
I
think you
don't
can
know
for this
that it
town,
would.
and
We could
put it to
try.
the voters to get a vote
mandated
for
by
it.
state.
The state comes in and just passes what it wants, I know you voted in the representatives,
That's one thing I
but
will say is in
it ought to
each of the
be
draft
just
articles
put
where
through
the
with a
change is
Yeah.
driven
statement
by,
that it's
a
just being
statutory
changed
change.
because of a
I
state
have
law.
called that
What's the
out
sense
in
of
the
people
warrant
putting their vote
article
on it
and
when it
says
doesn't
this
matter in
change
the
is
end?
to be
We were
compliant
able to
with
say
state law.
it was mandated by the state for the statistics that we had to put the $10,000 a year into.
So,
We were able to tell the voters this is mandated, you'd have no choice.
I'm
You have to do
100%
it.
with you. So
Maybe you
I
can do the same thing here.
100%.
I think
My
that-
opinion, I am 100% opposed
Well,
to the
I
state
would-
doing this.
I hardly like
100%
to,
opposed.
even if you agree with what they're doing, that is.
Yeah, well,
100%
that, exactly,
opposed.
so,
Yeah.
But there's nothing, there's nothing that we can
But
do.
I'd like to find out if you could at least do one. Comes in and
Yeah, so
passes
Jen,
what it
we'll
wants.
do that, that's a very good suggestion.
But it ought to be
it's
just.
a lot on the ballot.
It is,
And
it
that
is.
was out a lot of it, and people should know why it's being done. What's the sense
This
of
is
people,
gonna be-
because the people that are on this board are thinking about it, or arguing about it, or
If these
discussing
are all
it
separate on
for
the
the
ballot, it's
town.
gonna be like 2 extra pages.
$10,000 a year into.
Uh-huh.
They probably won't even give us a mandated, you'd have no choice.
Yeah.
Well, it takes away the confidence of, I mean, people spend time thinking about it and voting on it.
Yeah.
100% opposed.
They ought
the
to know
state
that it doesn't
doing this.
matter.
Okay, so here's,
Even if you agree
here's
with
what I will
what they're
do
doing.
is,
Well, that, exactly,
Yeah.
so,
I
But-
will
but
make a
there's
couple
nothing-
quick
there's
cleanups to
nothing
this
that we can
document
do.
to take out
I'd
any
like
of
to
like
find out
the
if you
yellow
could
high,
at least
like the
do
notes
one.
that are in
Yeah,
here.
so,
And I will
Jen,
get this to
we'll do
Amber,
that. That's a very good
tomorrow
suggestion.
to
Okay.
send to
it's a lot on the
legal.
ballot.
It is.
We will
It is.
pose
A lot of it, and-
right off the
and
top
people should
whether
know
we
why
can
it's being
bundle. So
done.
basically, if you're looking at the table of
this is gonna
contents
be-
here,
Because the people
everything
that are on
from
this board are
accessory
thinking
dwelling
about it, or
units
arguing
through
about it,
camp
or
cabin
These
height
are all
limits.
separate on the
For the
ballot.
Those
It's
are
gonna be
the
like 2 extra
things that are
pages.
driven, oh no, through parking requirements, excuse me.
Probably won't even give
Those are
us-
the items that are driven by statute changes.
Well,
The
it
first
takes
two
away
and the
the
last
confidence
two
of-
are
people
items
spend
that
time
are
thinking about it and
community
voting
driven,
on it.
that are Wakefield driven.
They ought to know that it so that it doesn't matter.
So I'll
Okay,
ask
well,
if that bunch
So
can be bundled as a single article, on the warrant.
I will make a couple quick
I
cleanups
think
to this document.
if
to
we
take
are
out any of, like, the
intending
yellow like, the
to,
notes that are in here.
and I will get this to Amber.
If we are
Intending to send
to
this
to
to,
legal,
we will pose hearing on the 17th.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I think what we need to do tonight, though, is to vote to send this batch of amendments to hearing on the 17th. Amber, we can look at how that notice gets written in case legal says we can bundle them. But I think if we kind of make that as part of tonight's motion, that we will send the amendments that are here in this document to hearing on the 17th, with the understanding that we may bundle accessory dwelling units through parking as a single amendment. Hearing on the 17th. I think that will cover you. What we need to do tonight, though, is and allow Amber to get that notice prepared and out batch of amendments in time to hearing on the 17th.
Do you wanna talk about
Amber,
the
we
two
can
hold
the
on,
town
look at
proposed that
how
you're proposing?
that
Before you
notice
send the
gets
whole,
written
make a motion to
in
send the whole
case,
business?
So
legal
say
says we
that
can
again,
So
Steve.
there's two
But I
more that
think
you,
if we
you
kind of
guys
make
are
that as part of
proposing,
tonight's motion,
not state
that we will
mandated.
send
Which are
amendments that are here in
the,
this document
Family
to
compounds
hearing.
and bunkhouse.
yeah,
on
we've
the
already
17th,
had conversations
With
on
the
those.
understanding
Yeah.
that we may bundle accessory dwelling
So
units.
does anyone
through
want to
parking
make a motion
as
that
a
we?
single
I'll make that
amendment.
motion, whatever she said.
I think that will cover you.
Good enough.
Get it in the minutes and.
Or Priscilla.
So hold on, sorry, so hold on. So,
What was the motion?
so how about,
I make the motion to send these, do you wanna talk about the two
So hold on.
proposed warrant articles that you're proposing? Before you send
to
them
legal for
to
review?
legal and then to
So,
the next, with the meeting, 17, you guys.
yes, 17th of December for the,
December, not state mandate for public hearing.
anyone care to make a second?
Family compounds and bunkhouse.
18.
Yeah, we've already had
18.
conversations. All right, any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
I'll make that motion, whatever.
All right,
she says.
all right, just on the agenda, just,
Or Priscilla.
everyone should have a copy of a letter from the Conroe Pond Association, if you could please take a look at that when you get a chance. I don't want to necessarily go through that right now, but it was a lot of what we talked about previously around short-term rentals, septic capacity, yes, potential fire safety concerns, potential, permitting might address those, but Jen's gonna do some research on that. So I think the research we've asked Jen to do would at least address some of the concerns here. All right, so that's this, and you're looking at something else. On the agenda, so, everyone should have so, this is not specifically on the agenda, but I had asked Jen to take a look at, noise ordinances, and this is going back to the potential project that we were dealing with this past summer. As folks are aware, we do not have any specific fire safety concerns, potential. I'm gonna get this wrong. Quantitative, is that right? Quantitative? That we have qualitative, I think, noise ordinances that are more of like the subjective type right now. We do have something in our zoning that talks about small wind turbines, that's the only thing in our zoning that does have a specific decibel limit of 55 decibels at the property line. Specifically on the agenda, but I asked Jen what I want the board to consider, and it's probably too late for this, for the next warrant article. I want the board to consider whether it would make sense for us to add in more stringent zoning around specifics. And so I'm gonna stop there for a second, and I can give you some justification to that, but quantitative.
And the way you're going with it, I think that it's just bad.
noise ordinances that are.
I think what we had worked pretty good.
Yeah.
I think it stopped it.
Right,
We already know what I-
so here, so
I
so-
get what you're saying though,
Yep.
is if
Small
you
wind
address certain
turbines, That's
situations,
the only thing in our
Perhaps,
zoning that
but
does have a
it's a
specific.
slippery
Here-
slope.
Here's my thought, right? So, if we had a more specific zoning ordinance around noise that had specific limits, that somebody coming into town that wanted to build some sort of, or develop some sort of, operation that was going to be loud, and it was obvious it was gonna be loud, they would go somewhere else. And it would not have gotten to the point that it did with
I
us.
think what we had
Now,
worked pretty good.
yeah.
I have some level of confidence that what we have in our zoning
I get what you're
could
saying,
stand
though,
up
if you address
But
certain situations,
as,
perhaps, but. it's a
as we
slippery
saw
slope.
from the public, attendance, we had a those hearings, specific zoning ordinance around, no pun intended, I think it was loud and clear that they want to keep this town a peaceful town. And that a noise ordinance that had more specific standards would allow us to do so without opening up for potential loopholes and or different ways that people could or
I'm
could
not gonna
not.
disagree with that, because yeah, I think having things a little bit more black and white would make it better, but at the same time, I think we need to get clarification if we can bundle the state's regulations first, because if we
So
try
so what I'm saying is,
Something to
this is
think
too,
about.
to think about.
I think
Okay.
we're too late for this one.
Okay,
Right?
that's fine.
I
Yeah.
would like to say that we're not, but I
No, it
think
is.
to be reasonable and to have noise ordinance appropriate discussions, I also want Charlie and Dick to be here.
And
Right.
I'd like to see what's in other towns that has
Yep.
worked well, that
Yep.
has not been an overburden at the same time.
Yep, and so if you have the chance, when you get a chance to read through this, there are references to other towns and how, what they are doing and how what their regulations
I can see it.
If we can bundle
Commercial.
the state's regulations first.
Well,
because
so
it's-
yes, and if you look at.
I wouldn't want somebody
I think
crying in a
we're too
concrete
late.
floor at 2
Right, that's
o'clock in the
fine.
morning.
I would
Yes.
like to
You know,
say
there should be some
that
kind
we're
of.
not, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you're only gonna
Part
grind
of
a
it is
floor
now,
once.
Yeah, polish
So,
it too.
so,
Still, like, it's not an everyday thing though.
No.
right, and discussions, I also
Well,
as part of what is
Should be
here,
home.
right, as
And
just
I'd like to see
something to reference and to look at. There is, this section shall not apply to ordinary residential activities, and it goes on to say something. So, yes, it would be commercial operations, I think something like a racetrack maybe, right? There's certain things that like, I love motorcycle racing, like, would it be really neat to have a motocross track in town? Maybe, but I wanna live next to it? Absolutely not.
Crying in a
So-
concrete floor at 2
What was that?
Don't love to.
But we live in one.
Speak for yourself.
But so, but so,
Sorry.
I wanna be clear, like, there's
All right, for
things
stuff
that,
you like.
Exactly.
there's things that could, come, before us, that could, in theory, kind of fit into our current zoning because of what we have for, noise ordinance is subjective. So one person thinks is loud and obtrusive, somebody else may think, no, it's not. Let me come forth, have conceptual reviews, submit permitting, look to get approved. Oh no,
I think
now
we
it's
need
gotta
to
go to
write
court.
something,
Maybe.
like it just happened right here, right? So some people would hate to hear the sound of bikes ripping up and down the street, or loud motors or engines flying on the side, right? And other people would love it, right? So I think it still needs to fall into a situation where it can be a conditional use.
Exactly.
Where things can be moved and modified and allowed and not allowed. Just because one person moves into a neighborhood, if you buy a house near a racetrack, near a gun shop, or whatever, and then come in and start complaining about it, it's not, it's completely irrelevant complaint.
So I agree, and there
And
are.
we need to allow
there are
ways to get those things in places because they are tourist attractions for the community.
So I will, look to get approved.
in certain areas, was what I'm saying. So I'm not saying I wanna put something in that completely automatically shuts everything out.
To hear the sound of bikes ripping up and down the street, or loud motors
So-
or engines, funny cars under the stars, right? And other people would love it.
Do you understand what I'm saying though? Because if you, let's just say it's down in, let's just say the community union got together and say they wanted a racetrack to come
I
in.
can't imagine.
I'm not saying they would, but
Everyone-
just hear me
I
out.
can't imagine that there's an area in any town for that matter. that
It
you're
wasn't
gonna get-
Tamara.
And then come in and start complaining about it?
And they don't have zoning.
And there's no neighbors.
And they don't have zoning, so
How
I
long it took
agree.
me to-
And
And
they're
we
right.
need to
They're
allow.
But
ways
I
to get
guess
those
like,
things in places because they are.
I don't know how realistic that is, Dave.
I'm just saying there should always be a way to adapt. If you have, if you had a way, if you went to go put something in and the neighbors around you were supportive of it, right? But the ordinance says no. And all the neighbors that are, all affected neighbors of whatever might be done are in support of
Let's
it.
just say this,
Then you should be able to do it.
got
Should
together and
we
say they wanted a
have,
racetrack
should we
to come
allow,
in.
as a
I
question, imagine,
I'm
should
not
we
saying they would,
allow
but
a
just
conditional
hear me
use
out.
for a nuclear waste
There's
site?
Well, I guess if all the neighbors are for it.
Only if it's on the Union Wakefield line.
That makes no sense to me.
I got a piece of
I
property.
know that's extreme, right?
That, yeah,
So-
it's extreme, but I'm not talking about extreme, I'm talking about something that's not so extreme, whether it be,
I don't know how
and it could be
realistic
something
that
as,
is,
I'm
maybe,
just saying,
maybe not the whole
should always be
large
a way
caliber
to adapt.
rifle,
If you have-
but
if
maybe
you
some
had a
small
way
22
to-
caliber
if you
shooting
went to
range for
put
the Boy
something in and
Scouts.
the neighbors around you were
What you
supporting
might wanna
it,
think about is kind
Right?
of redefining
But
your
the ordinance says
recreational.
no.
You know,
All the neighbors
where
that
the shooting range was
are, all
applied for
affected
came
neighbors
under
of
the
whatever
water.
might be done are in support.
Yeah, recreational, commercial,
It's
right.
pretty
Should
vague
we have, should we
definition,
allow,
I mean, you could,
should we allow a
pinpoint-
conditional use for a
you could
nuclear waste
work on,
site?
you could work on
I
that,
guess if all the neighbors are
define.
for it.
Only if it's on
fits in
the
that
Union
category.
Wakefield line.
That makes no sense to me.
But I'm just saying, if the Boy Scouts, like I'm saying, if the Boy Scouts wanted to come in, let's just say I took my 10-acre lot and I wanted to come in, and I got plenty of room to put in a 22 range. And even if there was 30 kids shooting off 22 caliber rifles,
but maybe something, a small 22 caliber.
you're not gonna have, the noise is gonna be canceled out down in that
You
area,
might wanna think about is.
right? So now, would it be over a noise ordinance in depending on what the decibel reading is? Possibly. But it's not it's not gonna have the magnitude to travel.
Pretty
I think
vague
even that would be a tough push for
definition,
this
I
town.
mean, you could pinpoint.
To put on some kind of, I mean, everybody shoots in the town, you know.
That's just it.
You know, you would have 5,000 people down
The
there.
neighbors
you know.
just up the street from it shoot off all
Can't
day
approve
long.
the minutes because only two
Yeah,
of you
so-
were here,
So
so.
I guess what I'll ask is, please take a look at what Jen and her organization put together. I do wanna bring this up, maybe we put this on the next agenda to review or talk about noise ordinance, and this would be for
You're not
a,
gonna have, the noise is
you
gonna
know,
be
a
canceled out down in that area,
2027.
right? So now, would it
I
be
guess,
over a noise ordinance
potential.
and depending on what the
Everyone
decibel
okay
reading
with
is?
that?
Possibly.
Yeah.
But it's not going, it's not gonna have the magnitude of
Yeah, so
travel.
again, like,
That would be a tough push for
Just-
this town.
from hearing what we
You
saw.
want me to say it, don't you?
Motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
No, no, no,
Second.
we're not ready there. We're not ready. Hold on. All right, I'll move along, all right?
See me look at my watch or whatever you call it.
So wait, cause I think Steve, you had said
I guess what I'll ask is,
there wasn't.
please take a look at what.
Yeah, let's move the approval of the minutes to the next meeting. Next meeting date is December 4th. All right, motion to adjourn.
And we do have, at the next meeting we have a major subdivision application for us.
Okay, do you know where that is?
Yeah, it's Watertown Village, it's gonna be on
Okay,
Old,
okay with
they
that.
came before us for conceptual a few months ago
Um,
on Old Stage Road in Marsh Road.
Okay, just, yeah, yeah, okay. From hearing what we
You
saw.
want me to say it, don't you?
But that's it.
Adjourn?
Yeah.
No, no, no,
Second.
we're not ready there. All
again.
right, all in favor?
See me look at
Aye.
my
All right,
watch.
thank you, everyone. So wait, cause I think, Steve, you had said there wasn't. Yeah, let's move the approval of the minutes to the next meeting. Next meeting date's December 4th. All right, motion to adjourn.
And we do have, at the next meeting we have a major subdivision application coming before us.
Okay, do you know where that is?
Yeah, it's Watertown Village, it's gonna be on
Okay.
Old, they came before us for conceptual a few months ago on Old Stage Road and Marsh Road.
Okay, yeah, yeah, okay. All right,
But that's it, that's.
okay.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second again.
All right, all in favor?